Hi, welcome back to week 3 of the Rank Maker series. Now, if you're here live, I appreciate you. Now, if you're watching the replay, I'm glad that you're here. You see, the series is built like a ladder, right? Week 1 was all about mindset. Week 2 was posture. Week 3 is all about perspective and how to win the next 90 days. And when I say win, I'm going to define it differently, right? It's not about impressing the person next to you. It's not about comparing yourself to someone on stage. It's not about trying to prove anything to your friends or family. Winning is impressing the only person that really matters, and that's future you. The point of today is to give you a different way to think so it becomes easier to win, okay? It's not just, and what's amazing is the formula I'm going to give you is not just in Riman, but in anything where you have to do things to get results. So here's what we're going to be covering today, okay? We're going to be covering what to do. We're going to cover how to do it. We're going to cover why to do it, who you need to become, and more importantly, when to start. So let's go ahead and begin, right? So just to recap, week 1, we set the internal operating system, right? Which is the rank maker mindset. Pillar 1 is all about identity, right? Identifying yourself that I am a rank maker before the back office shows it, that you're a team leader, director, before the back office catches up, right? You're already there. Reality hasn't caught up yet. Pillar 2 is all about productive dissatisfaction, right? It's about using other people's wins as proof and not intimidation. Pillar 3 is all about extreme ownership, right? Understanding that no one is going to build the rank for you, that you are the CEO of your business. Pillar number 4, your word is law. If I say it, I do it, right? And my confidence comes from following through. Now, week 2, right, we talk about posture. Week 2 is all about, because what do we realize, right? When we talk about posture, it's important because belief alone doesn't build rank, right? If the behavior doesn't match, if the lyrics don't match the song. So mindset is all about belief. It's your internal operating system. And posture is your embodiment, right? It's your external stance. It's how the world responds to you. Now, mindset is a story you tell yourself, and posture is the position you take in the story. Now, high performers learn this early on, that posture often leads to mindset, okay? So, week 3 is about perspective, right? Because perspective determines what you focus on, how you interpret the hard seasons, and whether you stay consistent long enough to win the 90-day run. So let's talk about it, right? What do you need to do to win in the next 90 days? Well, winning is doing the things that make future you proud, period. Because if you're already ahead of most people, comparing down makes you complacent, right? That is the trap for most high achievers. They compare themselves to people they're already doing better than, and guess what? It allows them to get comfortable and not reach their full potential. Now, if you're building up, comparing yourself to others often creates excuses that we can't control, right? So we're removing the comparisons with people and replacing it with a comparison to future you, the highest version of you, the best version of you, the version of you that's already a national director. That's who you want to impress, right? Future you, that is going to be the official scorecard, okay? Now, here's an exercise that's going to make this painfully simple. You see, our brains are wired to spot problems faster than solutions, right? Our brain was designed to help us survive to live another day. It wasn't designed to help us thrive and enjoy and live for today, right? It's all about survival. So we're going to use that wiring for actually something useful, right? I want you to imagine, okay, for a second, I want you to imagine the least successful version of you in Riman. Okay, let me say it again. I want you to imagine the least successful version of you in Riman. Not a bad person, just a version of you that if you show up as, will guarantee that you don't win this 90 days. Okay, what do they do or not do that guarantees they lose, right? So whenever you get the chance on your own, make a list. What are the action steps, right? What is the lowest version of you that will guarantee you will fail the next 90 days? Okay, they'll guarantee you will lose. Because that list is so easy to make, right? If I tell you, hey, what are the things that'll guarantee you'll win? It's hard for our minds to be able to grasp that. So we're using our survival mindset, our mindset that is naturally able to find negative things to its advantage, right? So again, I want you to imagine the least version of you in Riman. Not a bad person, just the version of you that guarantees you don't win this next 90 days. My question to you is this: what do they do or not do that will guarantee they lose, right? So let's talk about it. What are some of the things that will guarantee loss, right? You watch trainings, but you don't implement, right, the lessons, right? You post inconsistently or not at all, right? You avoid conversations. You don't go and prospect, right? You don't follow up, right? You treat this business and you're more transactional instead of relational, right? You don't track your numbers like your volume, your sales points, how many people on your team, right? Who's next to manager, senior manager, right? You wait to feel confident. You show up late or unprepared, right? You don't attend weekly calls, right? You quit mentally when things get hard, right? You opportunity hop, or you keep starting over, or maybe you blame the economy, timing, the team, the market. You avoid discomfort and call it being busy. Okay, that's my list. That's how you can guarantee that you'll lose. Once you make that list, here's what's amazing. If you know what will guarantee that you'll lose, you also know the action steps that will guarantee your win, that will guarantee your success, right? And this is a technique called inversion, right? I learned this from Elon Musk. Elon Musk learned this from Albert Einstein. So here's what you do, right? Once you make that list of all the things that will guarantee that you will lose the next 90 days, you invert it. We flip it, right? So taking that same list, we can turn it into a guaranteed win list, right? Which means instead of watching the trainings and not implementing the action steps, you implement immediately. You post consistently. You invite daily, right? You follow up on a cadence. You build relationship first, right? You track your numbers weekly. You move with posture before confidence arrives, right? You show up on time. You show up prepared. You stay plugged into the system, right? You keep going when it's boring or hard. You commit to one run and you finish it, right? You take extreme ownership. You choose discomfort over purpose, right? You choose discomfort on purpose. Now, most of you already know how to win because you already know how to lose. Winning is often just doing the opposite of what guarantees failure. And it's something so simple. Once I understood that, it changed everything for me. Anytime I go into a task, something I want to succeed, I make a list, right? What will guarantee my failure? And guess what? I flip it, and now I have a list that'll guarantee my success. If you remember the past calls, I said winning, right, is not checking the score on the scoreboard, right? It's getting better at the game, right? And this is how you get better at the game. So once you have that list of what will guarantee your win, here's what you do. You learn how to operationalize everything, right? Now, a lot of people don't win, not because they don't know what to do, okay? But because they don't know how to do it. Most instructions fail. Why? Because they're too vague, right? And here's what I teach people. For those of you that are already the higher ranks, maybe you're already a team leader, director, and you're having your teams watch these calls. Understand that the more skill and experience someone has, the more simple a command or instruction you can give them and they'll understand. But the less experience and skill someone has, the more detailed your instructions need to be. So many leaders fail because they forget what it's like to be a brand new person. They forget how long it took for them to get as good as they got. And when they give instructions, they give it from the perspective of someone that's been a veteran, that's been in there for quite some time. And if someone's never done it before, they don't know how to do it, right? So again, most instructions fail because they're too vague, right? Instructions like be consistent, have better posture, build relationships, follow up. Again, these are not instructions. These are what we call labels. You see, what I've realized in psychology is that adults learn the same way kids learn. The only difference is the ego of the adult is a lot bigger, right? So here's the key. The less skilled someone is, the more detailed instructions must be. You see, in a rank maker, we don't say, go build, right? Someone that has experience, someone that's been in the game for a while, right? Team leader, director, you can tell them, go build, and like, got it. I know what you mean by that. Right? But a rank maker, someone that's less skilled, we don't say that. We say, hey, post as many times a day. Send these many invites a day. Follow up with this cadence, right? Book these many calls. Host these many K pop-ups, right? Operationalization, all that means is explain it using action someone can observe with their eyes. So you want to be great trainers, great leaders, right? When you're coaching and teaching your team, you want to explain everything using actions someone can observe with their eyes. So imagine you tell someone, be confident. If someone doesn't believe they're confident and you tell them that, they're going to be like, to you, they're going to be like, okay, got it. But when it comes time to execute and take action, they're going to be like, how do I do that? But imagine being confident is just a label that encompasses a lot of different action steps that if you follow it, someone's going to deem you as confident. Right? So think about it. Someone that's confident, what do they tend to do? They smile. They remembers everybody's name, a firm handshake, right? Whatever it is. Imagine you tell someone, hey, we have a big K-pop up. There's been a lot of guests there. Make sure you greet every single person that walks through those doors. Make sure you have a big warm smile. Make everybody feel important. Remember people's names. Repeat it back to them. Right? And guess what? Someone that shows up like that, people are going to see that person, what they're going to think about them. That person's confident. So that's the difference between giving somebody a label and telling them to do that and giving them instructions that they can explain and observe with their eyes. Okay? So again, operational, that's all it means. Explaining using actions someone can observe with their eyes. So I'll give you guys a couple of examples, right? Instead of telling someone to be consistent, what does that look like? Post 1 story a day. Go live once a week, right? Send 10 invites a day. Follow up on, on the 24 hours, 72 hours, 7 days, right? It's setting these little benchmarks, okay? Instead of someone, hey, don't be so transactional, be relational, right? What does that mean? Instead of telling them that, tell them, hey, ask 2 questions to your prospect before sending info. Use someone's names. Save notes on your phone about what they're looking for, what their pain points are, right? Follow up, referencing what they've told you, right? Maybe you built a connection with somebody and they told you, hey, this holiday season has been tough. They cut down my hours. I want to make more money, X, Y, Z, right? And guess what? Next time you follow up with them, you say, hey, remember the other day we're having that conversation and you said, this holiday season is kind of tough because they cut your hours and you want to make more money? Well, what if I told you that I have this opportunity? I got really lucky. I started working with some very, very successful people and they put me in a position where I started making extra money around what I'm currently doing. Listen, if I could possibly hook you up, introduce you to a cutting edge industry with a #1 company and help you make more money around your schedule, would that something to be open to? But notice how I'm referencing what they share, right? That's being relational because someone's gonna be like, oh, this person remembers what I shared with them. They paid attention, right? And then, being relational means sending value before asking again. Okay? Instead of telling someone be confident, right? Tell them, speak in full sentences. No apology language, right? Strong, clear, leading. Make a clear ask. Do you want me to send you information? Offer 2 options, right? What day works better for you, today or tomorrow, right? Keep your tone steady, right? So here's your writer downer. If you can learn it, it's a skill. And if it's a skill, you can teach it. And guess what? Traits are usually just buckets of smaller skills. Okay, so let me say that again. If you can learn it, it's a skill. And if it's a skill, you can teach it, right? And again, traits are usually buckets of smaller skills. Confidence is a bucket of smaller skills. Being consistent is a bucket of smaller skills, right? All wrapped up into one. And when you break it down into details like that, it's so easy to know what action steps you need to take, okay? So how to actually create change? Well, I'm gonna give you 3 definitions that's gonna change how you approach the next 90 days, okay? The first definition I wanna share with you is learning, okay? So what is learning? Learning means you're in the same situation, but there's a new behavior. If the same thing happens and you respond the same way, guess what? You didn't learn, okay? So what does that mean? Learning means you're in the same situation, but there's a new behavior there. You respond differently. You take new actions. That's how you learn. Okay? And there's 3 types of learners, right? My mentor taught me there's 3 types of people. Dumb people, smart people, and wise people. Okay? A dumb person walking down the street, right, trips over a crack on the floor, falls down, and goes, that sucks. That was painful. Next day, walking down the same street, tripping over the same crack, right? So a dumb person, guess what, keeps making the same mistake over and over and over again. A smart person's like this. Maybe they're walking down the street, they trip over the crack, they hurt themselves. The next day, they're walking down the same street, they remember that situation. They go, hey, last time I didn't pay attention, I tripped. Now I'm gonna look down, I remember, they stepped over it, now they learned, right? Same situation, new behavior, okay? Now a wise person, guess what? Sees someone else walking down the street, trip over the crack, and says, hey, if I ever walk on that street, I'm gonna avoid that crack. Right? You're learning from other people's experiences. So there's different ways to learn, right? But how do you know if you truly learn? If there's a new action and a new behavior in the same situation you've been in before. Okay, so that's learning. Let me show you what intelligence is, okay? Now, intelligence is different than learning. You see, what intelligence is the rate of learning. How fast you change what you do under the same situation, okay? So maybe in a situation you get triggered, you react. Next time, you catch yourself, right? And the next time you catch yourself even faster, okay? So it's learning, it's how fast you change what you do under the same conditions, right? So what is confidence? Confidence is what I say is domain specific. It comes from proof, right? And proof comes from doing the things enough times in the real situation. So what does that mean, right? The only way to be confident in something is to be comfortable with it. And the only way to get comfortable with it is to be willing to be uncomfortable with it and do it enough times so you have enough proof that it works. And once you have that, you're going to be confident in that situation. So here's your writer downer, okay? Confidence comes from the past, not the present. You dig the well before you're thirsty, which means this. Don't wait to feel ready to follow up, go live, invite, or lead. Train it until you can do it anywhere. Does that make sense? Don't wait to feel ready to follow up. Don't wait to feel ready to go live. Don't wait to feel ready to go invite somebody. Don't wait to be ready to go lead. Train it. Do it until you can do it anywhere. Okay? Now, we all know what to do. The next question a lot of times people ask is, why don't we do the things we know we need to do? Well, there's different types of motivation, okay? The reason one is what we call external conditions, okay? And this is a cycle that most people repeat. And some of you who have experience, you maybe have been in this cycle, or you witness other people that have gone through this cycle. And this is a cycle most people repeat. Step one, uninformed optimism, right? That's usually in the very beginning. Your confidence far exceeds your ability. You don't really know what things expect, what things take, right? Uninformed optimism. You believe, you're confident, you're excited, but you don't really know what's required. Step two, level two, is what we call informed pessimism. Now you realize there are certain things that you don't know, that there's a gap in your ability, things that you have to learn, things you have to get out of your comfort zone, things you have to change. And that is the hardest part for most people, is being a beginner, is being willing to be bad at something so they can be good at something. Remember, no one's born naturally good at something. If someone joins this business, they have a lot of success really fast, it's not because they're like God's gift. It's because chances are they paid the price somewhere else, and those skills, those experiences transfer over here. But everybody goes through the same cycle, right? You get started something brand new, you're excited, you're confident, right? You're eager. Then you start trying, you start putting in the work, and it's maybe a little bit, it takes more skill than you thought it was going to be. It's a little more challenging than you expected, right? Now you realize, oh, I have to get good at this. I have to learn this and this. And now you start getting pessimistic. Level three is where most people quit. And that's what we call the valley of despair. And this is where people start beating themselves up. They become a victim. They start blaming the economy, the team, everything around them, right? Everything. And then they quit and they hop onto the next thing. If you repeat that cycle long enough, you're never going to get to compounding, right? You know, compounding interest is one of the most powerful tools in the world. But guess what? Your skills compound too. And it only compounds based on experience. So here's what it looks like when you win. Winners go through this. They still go through the same process. They still go through uninformed optimism. They still go through informed pessimism. They still go through the valley of despair. But where it changes is because they continue to put in the work. Then they get to level 4, which is informed optimism. Now you understand the process, right? You might have understood on paper before, right? But you didn't know how to do it. You were intimidated. That's informed pessimism. Now you're putting in the work. You understand the process, right? You're doing the work consistently. You can create predictable numbers because you understand your business. And then you reach level 5 is where you win. Because you stayed long enough for the work to stack. That's the thing. You got to stay long enough for the work to stack. If you remember the earlier trainings, I talked about success being like that water pump. You got to create the pressure to build it up before the water can come out. And sometimes in the beginning, you're putting in all this work. It doesn't look like your results are coming. It doesn't look like you're making any progress, but you don't see the pressure that's building, that's about to create the overflow of abundance for you. And that's where people quit. They stop, right? They stop pumping that water. That pressure goes all the way down. They beat themselves up. They go through a victim mentality or whatever it is. And then all of a sudden they shift. They go, you know what? I want to make this thing happen. And they repeat the same process in the same opportunity or a different opportunity, right? And so you want to stay long enough for the work to stack. You see, in Riman, the people who win aren't the ones with the most hype. It's the ones who stay. So here's your writer downer. What makes you extraordinary isn't what you do. It's how long you're willing to do it for. Down times, quiet times, slow seasons, that's where champions are built. You know, my fitness classes, right? You know, when I teach boxing, it's 10 rounds. And in round number 9 and 10 is when people start to feel it. And one of my favorite things to say is like anybody can feel great in the first 2 rounds. Anybody can feel great and energized and strong and fast, right? When they're fresh. But it's in the later rounds, 9 and 10, where your back's against the ropes, when you're tired, you're exhausted, right? When your muscles are heavy, everything is tight, your breathing is heavy. It's in those moments where you want to quit and it's uncomfortable that you continue to put in the effort, the reps, that's where champions are built. Muhammad Ali, one of my favorite boxers, they asked him in an interview one time, they say, how many sit-ups do you do in a training session? And I love what Muhammad Ali says. He goes, I don't really know because I don't start counting until it starts hurting. Because when it starts hurting, that's where all the progress is made. What if we had that same perspective? That when we're struggling, that when we're having challenges, right, in the business, that's something to celebrate because it means that we're going to work. It means we're making progress, right? It means we're shifting, we're doing something. And guess what? That's always rewarded, okay? Again, down times, quiet times, slow seasons, that's where champions are built. A smooth sea never made a skilled sailor, right? This is where, we develop the skills, the posture. Because when you survive the challenging times, the hard times, when little things happen, it doesn't bother you, right? So again, number one is external situations, right? Number two, internal conditions. So you see, where does motivation come from? Motivation comes from the gap of where you are to where you want to go. You see, motivation is tied to deprivation. But with money and success, guess what? It's psychological. You only feel behind when you perceive a gap between where you are and where you want to be. So if you want to change what you do, you need to change who you compare yourself to. There's a clean way to do it without obsessing over other people. And what that is, I mentioned earlier, is comparing yourself to future you. All you got to ask yourself, the highest version of me, am I living up to that standard? Right? With the highest version of me, the national director version of me, would they invite this way? Would they have this kind of schedule? Right? How would they show up? And that's who you compare yourself to. That's who you want to be. Okay? That's who you want to be. That's who you're comparing yourself to. That's your competition. It's you versus you. Right? It's the person sitting in your seat, wearing your clothes, thinking your thoughts. And that's the only person that matters. And that's the person that you want to impress, right? So again, if you want to change what you do, right? Here's your writer downer. If you want to change what you do, change who you compare yourself to. For the next 90 days, future you is the standard, okay? So who do you need to become? Well, people love to talk about becoming, right? But identity is just a description of repeated behavior, right? I love what Socrates says. Socrates says, we are what we repeatedly do. So if you want to see what someone really believes, if you want to see who someone really believes they are, watch the actions that they take and how they take those actions, because it will explain everything. Because we are what we do, right? And not only that, but repetition creates reputation. We are what we repeatedly do. So instead of asking, who do I need to become? Ask yourself, what does future me need to do daily? Then do that. What would future me do today to bridge the gap from where I am today to where they are at? Do that, okay? So here's your writer downer for your notes. The work works on you more than you work on it, right? Let me say that again. That's a little tongue twister, right? The work works on you more than you work on it. You see, with a new identity comes new priorities. When you decide that you're a rainmaker, you allocate the time, energy, and attention differently, okay? You got to be intentional, okay? This business doesn't just happen. It happens just. It responds to what you give it. You cannot cheat the grind. You cannot cheat the hustle. It knows exactly what you put in, and it will not give you anything you don't deserve. This business is one of the most fair things possible, right? And again, it's all about alignment. So when should you start, right? That's the big question, right? When do you start? You see, the biggest excuses that people make are excuses like, I'm too busy. But you know what the challenge of that is? If you only start when you're not busy, you're saying that the habits you're building are not going to survive busy seasons. So the best time to start is, guess what? When you're the busiest, because it builds something that lasts, right? The second biggest excuse that people give, right? I don't have time. Guess what? I promise you have time. It's just allocated to things that aren't moving the needle forward, right? Elimination comes before addition, right? And what does that mean? So many of us try to add more things to our routine, to our schedule, to have more results. What if it's removing things? What if it's saying no to things? What if it's eliminating anything in our life right now that does not help us evolve, grow, or become the future version of ourselves? That's where it comes down to, right? So changing your time. We all have 168 hours in a week. How many hours do you spend sleeping a day? Subtract that. How many hours do you spend eating a day? Subtract that. How many, if you have a job, right? How many hours do you work at your job? Subtract that. How many, what's the drive time, right, for your job? Remove that. Right? What are some other priorities? Dinner with the family, everything you have to do, subtract the hours. And guess what? You're going to find that you have 4 to 6 hours extra a day, a week to go out there and make this business happen. It just has not been a priority yet. You're spending too much energy trying to figure out what to do instead of spending it into what to actually do. Okay? So don't wait until you're not busy. Don't wait until you have time. And last but not least, the third biggest one is my favorite. The when then fallacy, right? I'll do it when. And that's backwards. Because you do the thing now to get the results later, not wait for the results to get the thing later. It just doesn't work out that way, right? And so again, the best time to start is when you're busy. And you know what? And I'll give you a good example. Where I saw this most is during COVID. And, being a fitness instructor, I saw this a lot, right? Because a lot of my clients came after this. And what ended up happening was during COVID, everything was shut down, right? People can't go anywhere. They didn't have to work. They couldn't go anywhere. So a lot of people had extra time. And the people that had extra time, a lot of them decided, hey, now I actually have time to work out. I have time to meal prep. I have time to cook. And guess what? People cleaned up their diet. They cleaned up their exercise. And they got in incredible shape. They lost weight. They built muscle. But then here's what happened. COVID, right? All of a sudden, the world shifted and we went back to work, almost like nothing ever happened. But here's the challenge. It's because they built those skills when they had time. Now that they didn't have time anymore because they went back to their work schedule, what happened? They stopped meal prepping. They stopped going to the gym as often. And guess what? A lot of those people lost the results, right? They lost the results that they actually created, or they backtracked. But here's something else that's interesting to happen. The people that are already committed to a healthy lifestyle, working out, diet, and exercise, you know what ended up happening? When COVID happened, they got even in better shape, right? They got even healthier. Why? Because they trained when they were busy. They trained and built those habits when they didn't have time. So when they weren't busy and they had time, guess what? Everything grew exponentially better. And when COVID stopped and the world returned to how it was, guess what? They're able to keep the results. Why? Because they already built the habits when they were busy and didn't have time. And that's why it's so important to start right away. It's important to start when the conditions are actually against you, because guess what? When it eases up, you're going to have that much more momentum, that much more proof, okay? Again, here's your writer downer. I said this earlier. You don't get in order to do, okay? You do in order to get. Let me repeat that. You don't get in order to do, you do in order to get. Does that make sense? Right? The actions come before the results. You don't wait for the results, then take the action. So again, when do you start? Very, very simple. The moment you want to become future you. When do you think is the best time for you to decide to become the highest version of you? When do you think is the best time for you to decide, right? To become the future you, to become a national director. That's the moment you start. Because the moment you do what future you does, guess what? You become that person. It just takes time for the proof to show up, right? That's what we mean by be, do, have. Be that person first. Be the future you first. Do the action, right? That the future you does. And guess what? Action follows posture, right? That's the posture. Then everything else comes. The proof comes. You do it in order to get, not get, right? In order, right? So anyways, moving forward, right? So the winning formula for the next 90 days, okay? Here's how you win the next 9 days in one sentence. Make it unreasonable that you won't. What would you have to do to make it unreasonable that you don't rank up? What will guarantee your failure? List those actions. List those actions. And guess what? Invert it, flip it, and do the opposite. And track those actions. Why? Because you measure success by completions of actions. Actions are the bridge between dreams and accomplishment. Doesn't matter how well you organize your space. Doesn't matter how great your K-pop-up displays are. Doesn't matter how great your charcuterie board, setup is. If you don't take action, if you don't prospect, you don't invite, you don't follow the pipeline, guess what? You're not going to get results. Okay? So understand that. Okay? Now, the other thing I want to share with you is that the greatest games in life aren't won once. They're outlasted. What does that mean? You don't win at health. You stay healthy. You don't win at business. You stay in business. You don't win in leadership. You keep leading. So what does that mean? Winning becomes outlasting. Okay? And I understand there's times that it's going to get hard. But let's be honest what hard really means. Okay? So let me reset reality for anyone on this call or watching this replay. right? That's in the messy middle of their business, right? Not the beginning of the business, right? Where you have informed optimism. I'm talking about the people in the middle that might have informed pessimism. You're going through challenges, right? You're going through the growth phase. You're starting to realize that you got to develop some skills. You got to put in some work that you didn't expect, right? This is for you. This is what hard feels like. Hard feels like doing the actions without knowing if you'll get rewarded immediately. Hard feels like showing up when it's boring. Hard feels like doing the follow-ups, posting, inviting, leading, even when the scoreboard hasn't caught up yet. And the people who win keep doing the actions anyways. That's the difference. The people who win do the actions anyways, even if the scoreboard hasn't caught up yet, even if they don't get rewarded immediately, even when it's boring. Because guess what? You can feel terrible and still win. Surprise, if you didn't know that. Now you know. You can feel terrible and still win. Right? Because guess what? Everything must be hard before it becomes easy. What makes things hard isn't complexity, it's consistency. You haven't done it consistently enough. When you do something consistently enough, guess what happens? Right? It becomes easy. That's all it is. That's all it is, consistency. How do you get good at something? You do it. Isn't that ironic, right? Right? So, in closing. Okay? You already know what to do to win. You already know how to do it. Right? Make a list of all the things that will guarantee your failure. Invert it like Elon Musk, right? Invert it like Albert Einstein, right? And now you can make a list of the opposite. Now you have a detailed list of the actions that will guarantee your success. And here's what you do. Those labels that you write down, break it down smaller until it's impossible to fail. And you know why. Hard times create champions and compounding. You know who, right? Which is you, future you, built through repeated actions. And you already know the when, which is now. If you take one thing from this training, it's this. If you do not change your behavior, you did not learn. So this week, don't just feel inspired. I want you to pick 1 to 3 behaviors that you're going to change immediately, right? 3 behaviors that you're going to change immediately and show up different. You're going to choose to show up as the future you. Even if you don't believe your future you yet, I want you to imagine as if you did and try to convince everybody else that you already are by how you talk, how you carry yourself, and how you present yourself. And here's what's amazing. You do that, you're already that person. The results hasn't caught up yet. You haven't gotten the proof yet, but it's already in motion, okay? And guess what? When you go back to the same environment, same phone, same schedule, same life, show proof that you learned. Same condition, new behavior, okay? So if this hits, in the chat box, type rank maker, and let's win the next 90 days. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I love and appreciate every single one of you. Thank you so much for joining us. Happy holidays. I know Christmas is only a few short days away. And if you celebrate that, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. And remember, right? Remember, this is the time of season to give, to have love. And, you know, a lot of times people don't talk about it, but, you know, this holiday season is also very depressing for a lot of people. There are also people that go through different things. Maybe they lost somebody or they're not in the best situation. And the best gift that you can give somebody, right? And especially if you're not feeling your best, if you're feeling a little bit down, low energy, or that loving, exciting feeling is kind of missing on certain days, the best thing you can do is go and give that and show it to somebody else, right? Because when you go and show and give that to somebody else, you're going to feel it for yourself too. So make this holiday season special. I love and appreciate every single one of you. Can't wait to see everybody in Long Beach and for all the Asia team in Macau. So that being said, I'm signing off. See you.